This tale unfurls in a fantastical realm populated by mighty individuals, capable of cleaving mountains with a simple gesture of their hand. These men and women, revered as cultivators, were regarded with immense respect across this land. The endgame of their cultivation of the Tao was the attainment of immortality, a pursuit that afforded them power, reverence, and the fulfillment of their heart's desires. Our story revolves around a young lad named Lifa, who would one day become a legend in this world. In a bizarre twist of fate, Lifa, a boy from the 21st century, found himself transported to this extraordinary realm. Far from being upset, he was overjoyed at the prospect of treading the path of immortality. Having devoured numerous novels, he knew he was embarking on the quintessential journey of a protagonist to the pinnacle. First and foremost, he felt the need to test his spiritual roots. As the protagonist, he believed he would be blessed with golden roots, the rarest of them all. However, reality was unkind to him. Not only were his spiritual roots crippled, but his cultivation talent was also the most abysmal. His body was unfit for cultivation, a revelation that left him devastated. He shed tears for 3 days and nights, overwhelmed by his predicament. He soon became a target of ridicule and scorn. Bullied and belittled by others, his spirits sank even lower. But then, something extraordinary occurred. He heard a voice, a proclamation of great joy. He had activated the God-level cultivation system, offering him a pathway to become an unparalleled power in this world after accomplishing 666 tasks. Upon hearing this, hope surged in his heart. Elated at the activation of his cheat, Lifa knew he was destined for greatness. The voice of the system echoed in his mind, reinforcing his confidence. Emboldened, he vowed to pay back those who had mocked him earlier. But cruel fate wasn't done with him. The first task assigned to him was far from glorious, delivering pigs to Aunt Wang, his neighbor. Even the reward pack he received held no fighting or cultivation techniques but, ironically, a farming skill. Enraged, he cursed his misfortune. Why was his luck so dire? Every other hero got blessed with an overpowered system, while he ended up with farming skills. Left with no other option, he had to complete 666 farming tasks as dictated by the system. Thus, he spent 3 grueling years chopping firewood, feeding chickens, honing calligraphy and painting skills, and even safeguarding Uncle's melon field. Exhausted from these chores, he was feeding the chickens one day when a man approached him. The festival was near, he said, and asked if Lifa could write a couplet for him. Inherently altruistic, Lifa willingly accompanied the middle-aged man. As soon as he left, a spectacle unfolded. The 2 ordinary chickens morphed into majestic phoenixes, and a terrifying sea dragon emerged from the tranquil pond. Master Li once washed his feet here, the dragon mused, explaining its transformation from a mere fish. Nearby, a tree chimed in, expressing its awe at Lifa's escalating power, becoming an unfathomable force over the years. However, it noted, Lifa never had any female companions, presumably because of his preoccupation with his tasks. Meanwhile, on the outskirts of a mountain village, a group was congregating, led by a woman named Musai, also known as the STIs. One of her disciples, quivering with fear, cautioned her about the dangers ahead, a place so lethal it had claimed their ancestors. But Musai, with resolve etched on her face, explained the urgency of their mission. She unveiled the sect's prized possession, urging everyone to channel their Kai for protection. As soon as I shatter this barrier with our formation disc, follow me in, she commanded, activating the sect's treasure, the formation disc. The disc activated, tearing a massive rift in the barrier. A wave of potent Kai erupted from within, assailing everyone present. The formation disc shattered, heavily injuring Musai, who was closest to the activation point. She sobbed, crushed by her failure to overcome the first obstacle in her quest for the divine water beads. As consciousness slipped away from her, she crumbled, but before she could hit the ground, she found herself enveloped in a man's arms. The man, taken aback by the sudden turn of events, was none other than Lifa. Seeing Musai unconscious, he realized the thick smog and scant oxygen had likely made her faint. With a casual wave of his hand, he cleared the smog in the vicinity, revealing a sight that left Musai dumbfounded upon regaining consciousness. This was not mere smog, it was a formation spell, and it wasn't supposed to dissipate so easily. How powerful was this man? In awe, Musai, alongside her disciples, bowed in reverence. Introducing herself as Musai from Manhua, she explained their predicament of being trapped in a formation spell, the only escape from which was to break it. She apologized for disturbing Lifa and thanked him for his help. Lifa, flustered, modestly dismissed her praise, insisting he was just an ordinary individual. Lifa, struck by a sense of familiarity with the name Li Huosik, asked Musai how he might be of assistance. Musai responded hesitantly, mindful not to reveal too much about the secret mission of her sect. She was in search of a dark green bead. A flicker of recognition crossed Lifa's face. He had seen that bead frequently. Was it hers? Taken aback, Musai quickly bowed again, requesting Lifa to lead her to the bead. He agreed, but cautioned her about the potential damage their horses might do to his cornfield. With a desperate plea, Musai asked Lifa to guide only her, promising to pay any price for his assistance. His assistance made her feel hopeful, yet her closeness made him uncomfortable. Musai's disciple, sensing danger, whispered a warning into her ear. But Musai remained firm, ready to brave any hardship for the sake of her sect. Lifa, observing the disciple's deference to Musai, speculated that she might be a young noblewoman from a prestigious family. Suddenly, a massive fire erupted, the legendary Samadhi True Fire. Doubt gnawed at Musai, could her armor shield her from the fire's fierce heat? But Lifa merely gestured for her to follow him, striding confidently into the flame. To their utter astonishment, the flames receded wherever Lifa stepped. It was as if the fire was consciously avoiding him. Pulled out of her stunned reverie by Lifa's call, Musai stepped into the fire unscathed. Meanwhile, her worried disciples clenched their fists in silent prayer, hoping Musai would secure Lifa's favor and locate the divine water beads, their sect's sole hope for survival. Lifa then led her to a grove, revealing that he had spotted the beads while chopping firewood there. Musai's astonishment morphed into outright shock. The grove Lifa referred to as the legendary everlasting tree, and he had been using its precious timber for firewood. Overwhelmed, Musai nearly collapsed, but Lifa caught her, asking what was wrong. She confessed to feeling dizzy, and Lifa suggested she rest under the tree, bemused by her delicate constitution. Musai's moment of weakness, however, soon gave way to a newfound realization. This place felt like a paradise to Musai, a realm that surpassed even the heavenly descriptions passed down by her ancestors. As she rested there, she could sense the surrounding spiritual energy flooding into her being. Lifa, seeing her in such a state, offered her a drink of water. Expressing her gratitude, she accepted the gourd he handed her. However, upon peering inside, she was taken aback. There was an intriguing aura about the water it contained. With a cautious sip, she experienced a sudden breakthrough in her cultivation levels, from the second to the third, then swiftly to the fourth, and finally to the fifth. In one fell swoop, she had jumped 3 cultivation levels, a feat that under normal circumstances would have taken her at least 4 years to accomplish. Astonished, she could only stare at the gourd in disbelief. Lifa, oblivious to the surge of Kai and thinking she was simply thirsty, reassured her that there was plenty more water for her to drink. Musai, suspecting that this was a test of her restraint, quickly thanked him and handed the gourd back. Remembering the initial request, Lifa casually mentioned that he had seen a dark green bead nearby, advising Musai to search for it. With her newly enhanced spiritual perception, Musai sensed the presence of the divine water bead and pointed towards a location. Reaching the spot, Lifa smiled, and the bead spontaneously floated towards him. Seeing the bead respond to Lifa in such a friendly manner led Musai to surmise that divine water beads were sentient, always gravitating towards the strong. Without any fuss, Lifa handed the bead to Musai, who was surprised by his generosity. She had expected him to ask for something in return. Gratefully, she bowed and thanked him. Feeling awkward with her continued formalities, Lifa suggested she change her clothes and head back. Filled with gratitude, Musai bid Lifa farewell, hoping to cross paths with him again someday. As Musai left the village, one of her disciples, visibly agitated, informed her of a crisis. The Flame sect was planning to annihilate their own sect, Lihuos. They had to move swiftly. Meanwhile, within the confines of the Lihuos sect, an arrogant middle-aged man with a mustache arrived with his followers. His proclamation was harsh and dismissive. From this day forward, your Lihuos sect will cease to exist. You only have a single cultivator at the nascent soul level, while we possess 3. Are you really under the impression you can oppose my raging fire sect? The middle-aged man sneered, your best course of action is surrender. The sect leader of Lihuos, however, remained steadfast. As long as I draw breath, the idea of you destroying my Lihuo sect is a fantasy. In response, the other man smirked, charging his energy and retorted coldly, in that case, I'll have to make sure you stop breathing. Suddenly, a voice boomed across the confrontation, everyone, stop. It was Musai who had hurriedly arrived, declaring, Sect Master, the Lihuo sect's most precious treasure, the divine water bead, has been recovered. The sect leader's face lit up at the news. Now that we possess the divine water bead, victory is within our reach. He knew the bead held the power to amplify a cultivator's strength several times over, bringing a cheer from the disciples of Lihuos. The man with the mustache could hardly believe what he was hearing and exclaimed, that's impossible. That bead was lost in the Forbidden Land ages ago. How could she possibly have retrieved it? Musai simply smirked at his disbelief. I encountered a senior in the Forbidden Land, who graciously bestowed it upon me. The man scoffed, oh, so now Lihuos resorts to lies. You found some worthless trinket and are trying to pass it off as your sect's treasure. However, his mockery was cut short as Musai revealed her cultivation had now reached the 9th level. Aghast, he shouted, you were only at the 2nd level. How did you ascend to the 9th so quickly? Musai retorted, the senior in the Forbidden Land gave me some valuable advice. In truth, she had advanced her cultivation level to the 5th under the tree, and using the divine water bead, she had boosted it even further to the 9th level. Although he saw the evidence before him, the man struggled to accept this reality. Stumbling backwards in his disbelief, he fell over, prompting his disciples to inquire about his well-being. Mortified, he snapped at them to be silent. Gathering himself, he spat defiantly, "Don't believe for a second that I fear you, Li Huos. Now that you have this bead, enjoy your brief respite. We will return." With this cliched threat, he and his disciples made a swift retreat. After some time, the sect leader, the old ancestor, and Musai arrived at the village where she had met the mysterious senior. On questioning whether this was the right location, Musai admitted she wasn't sure if he lived here, but it was indeed where they had met. Upon entering the village, the sect leader was stunned to see a thriving community with people leading their lives in peace. Observing the proximity of this peaceful village to the forbidden land, the sect leader pondered aloud, how can people reside so near to the forbidden territory? An old couple soon crossed their path, carrying a hoe that instantly caught the old ancestor's attention. The tool radiated a tremendous amount of Kai energy, hinting it was no ordinary implement. "Did anyone use this hoe recently?" he asked the old woman, suspecting the last user might have left some Kai energy on it. "It's just me who uses it, who else would?" the woman replied with a shrug. Her husband interjected, reminding her, "Oh dear, have you forgotten? Young Lifa helped you with the weeding this morning." The old woman then recalled that it was indeed Lifa who assisted her earlier that day. Upon hearing this, the old ancestor politely inquired about Lifa's whereabouts. The woman gestured towards a stone house just beyond a vegetable field. As they made their way towards it, they gasped in astonishment. The field wasn't filled with regular vegetables, but rather, it was overflowing with high-grade elixir ingredients. The elixir ingredients were categorized into 5 classes: low, average, high, excellent, and legendary. Their own sect only used average quality ingredients, while high-quality ones were highly prized and typically used by top-tier sects. Excellent quality ingredients were extraordinarily rare, and no one had even seen legendary quality ones before. They couldn't contain their excitement at the sight and began sampling the plants, relishing in the intense spiritual energy they contained. After gorging on these, they sprinted towards the stone house, eager to meet this mysterious Lifa.